Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel after a lot of Vintage Cube. Now it's time to dig back into Legacy. And what do we have on the table today? We have a sweet dish of Legacy Showcase Challenge, 264 players on the weekend. So I didn't yet check out the results and the decks, so I'm just going to do this, improvised, and you basically get to see how I usually go about checking out data. Worth noting is we only have access to the top 32 lists from the event, so the information is going to be incomplete, but that's, how things used to be. We can probably unlearn having infinite data again. So let's see. First of all, taking down the event here, Jeskai Vile. It's a deck I've never seen before. I remember Esper Vile. I know about the new red-white Death and Taxes decks, and this is kind of taking some stuff from both sides of that fence. We have the Bombardiers and a Johnny, very potent combo. We have Philia, Recruiter of the Guard for infinite grind. Then we have a bunch of one-ofs. Lavinia against some combo decks. Magas against greedy mana bases. Venser even. That's an amazing Witch Enchanter. I guess that's also kind of a land, so a free roll. So what I'm wondering here is, let's check the blue count. So 2 Teferi, 2 Revealed, 4 Brainstorms, 4 Force of Wills. That's the first 12. And we have 13... 14, 18, 19. That's really not a lot. We do have Companion Yorion, I would guess. Yeah. So we have Companion Yorion, which is a card you can put into your hand mid-game, so that is kind of cool. Because it both pitches to the 4 Solitudes, and it pitches to Force of Will, so a little bit of saving grace there. Pretty standard stuff. Lots of Karakas, Wastelands. Okay, cool deck. What about the sideboard here? 4 Consigns, a couple of Deafening Silence. I was about to say this deck must be incredibly bad against combo, but I actually think that's okay in this metagame. I'm not too worried about that. 3 Fairy Macabres, 4 Blasts. Okay, well, great job. I certainly didn't have that on my bingo card. Next up, we have one of the other decks to beat, basically the blue-black midrange deck, blue-black tempo deck, whatever you want to call it. Pretty standard stuff. Low number of Tamios in this list. Main deck, hard removal. Go for the throat is the choice over shoot the sheriff. That's an ongoing discussion I always have. A couple of Thoughtseizes here to have, enough against unfair. Standard mana base with a swamp and an island. The swamp is good with sideboarded Harbinger. Makes a ton of sense. Third place here looks like pretty straightforward Reanimator. I will note the 4 Wastelands. Pretty standard stuff. The sideboard. Okay, wow. Pithing Needle. Yeah, I mean, Pithing Needle is a card that, can be good again if you know what your opponent's graveyard hit is. If it's Fairy Macabre, boom, shut it down proactively. If it's Unlicensed Hearse, boom, shut it down, even if it's on board. Nile Spellbomb, same thing. I will say that Needle is not reliable against stuff like Surgical. Needle is not reliable against Grafdigger's Cage. Needle is not reliable against, players diversifying their graveyard hate, but pretty cool to see. So now it looks like we have another mid-range deck. This time we're trimming Nethergoyf instead of trimming Tameo, and other than that, pretty standard. No Thoughtseizes. That makes a little bit of room. I will note that these blue-black decks still play Nile Spellbomb in the main deck. I do the same. I think it's super valuable. Sideboard, incredibly similar, leaning on Consign to Memory and Harbinger, and hedging a little bit against fair and unfair. Now we have, this is Painter. Okay, cool. So Painter is a deck that was very good pre-Grief Ban, because such a large chunk of the field was on Reanimator, and it just made sense that you had a deck where Agatha's Soul Cauldron could double as a combo piece and as a graveyard hate card. And it looks like in Premier Tournaments, that is still true. So, love this choice. Painter is a deck I should really learn. I would love to learn that deck, actually. Worth noting is we have Moons in the sideboard, despite being a Saga deck, which is quite amusing. I remember this nickname. This is probably some Doomsday shenanigans. Yeah, we're looking at Doomsday here. Doomsday with Frog and Tameo, 4 of each. So that's basically saying, look, buddy, you don't know if your Fatal Pushes or your Force and Negations are going to be important in this game, but you better get it right. So this is just saying these cards will keep the cards flowing, so they help my main plan, because Doomsday is basically trying to overwhelm the opponent, especially against counterspells, with, card quantity. And then you kind of have the turbo draws for the fast matchups. I imagine that's why you have a card like Lionside Diamond in your sideboard, so you can go faster against some matchups. Pretty cool things to see. Let's see. Here we have pretty standard Eldrazi deck, couple of One Rings. Yeah, pretty standard. These sideboards always look the same. 4 Macabres, some Dismember, some Traps, and then a little bit of flex slots going on. Oh, wow, 8th place. Did we have just only different decks? No, 2 Dimir mid-range decks. Okay. But almost, like, very diverse top 8, I'll say here. This blue-white Phyrexian Dreadnought deck is just, yeah, pretty cool, right? You all of a sudden, because Consigned to Memory is a stifle on your own cards, you all of a sudden also get a hate card against Eldrazi, which is a premier deck. You even got to a point where you don't even have to play Stifle in the deck, which is quite amazing. Doorkeeper Thrall can shut down some ETBs across the format, including, you know, Bowmasters, including some Eldrazi's, including Thassa's Oracle, Uro. I guess it's not very good against opposing Uro, lets the opponent keep it in play, but pretty cool list to see here. Court of Cunning. It's been a long time since I've seen that card. Just a lot of innovation going on here. I'm really impressed by this. Standard Eldrazi deck. Let's see. Oh, wow. Here we have the red-white Death and Taxes deck that I was talking about. So, Johnny Broadside is like the backbone of this deck. Then you play 4 Spirit of a Labyrinth, basically saying, look, if you're a cantrip deck, you better kill this card, or I'm gonna, you know, make us play fair. Let's see how much this deck is respecting Graveyard out of the sideboard. It has 5 cards, 6 cards. Okay, so 6 cards out of the sideboard. That's pretty reasonable. But double Land Sash, that's actually quite funny. Like, any you know, Stoneforge Mystic target, it's so rare to see 2 copies. I remember way back in the day, you could run 2 Batter Skulls, but that was because those were your only equipments. Pretty cool. Kentaro Hokori played another blue-black mid-range. Low number of artifacts here, so worth noting is that not Barragoyf, well, also that. Nethergoyf is a bit worse in this deck, I guess. This player wanted to fit even more creatures, even more removal, even the Spell Pierce. Only a single Harbinger in the sideboard. Copy of Threats of Disloyalty. Always love to see that card. It's, you know, Steel Up Rock. Pretty good. What do we have here? We have Reanimator with Petals. Oh, okay. So blue-black Reanimator with Petals. So this is basically a player saying, okay, let's up the speed here and, you know, do regular things, but we can also go even faster. Pretty cool. Here we have Reanimator with a couple of Tamios. Pretty standard list. Yep, very standard. And then we have Mr. Dretch here. I always recognize the name. And, of course, Dretch does not disappoint here. Even Oracle here for the combo finish. I'm trying to figure out how we go through our whole deck. Probably has to do with this card. Whenever Satur, the Infiltrator, and one more enters the battlefield, if none of them were cast, draw a card. Okay, so we can go through our deck here with, you know, Narcomoebas. Okay, that's kind of cool. We can win on the spot. Into the Flood Maw, basically just a new Chain of Vapor. Yeah, okay, so improved Chain of Vapor. Then we have a Beanstalk deck. That's cool. So I wanted to try this at some point. It's basically 4-color Beanstalk that plays Frog, Beanstalk, and Tameo as engine cards that kind of has to get dealt with. So pretty cool to see that. Then we have, look like, Fast Reanimator with even a World Gorger Dragons thrown in for good measure. I love the 4 Cabal Therapy. Like, you need to be a gangster, legacy gangster, absolute mobster to be able to play with Cabal Therapy. And I love, oh, okay, so I love this, the transformational sideboard with the, you know, the Sedgemoor Witch and the Apprentice, like the Magecraft guys, basically, with Chain of Smog, and then Inquisition of Kozilek. I think that's a card I've never seen in people's sideboard before, so yeah, pretty nice. Must be some 15-card plan here. Then we have another Reanimator deck, which includes Petal and a bunch of fatties. So funnily enough, I have a friend who's... Oh yeah, I messed up. Let's see. Can we recover from this terrible decision of clicking into that website? I guess we can. All right, a little bit of misclicking there. I hope you guys survive. So another blue-black Reanimator deck with Petals in it. So low land count, no wastelands. I like that. And then the deck is playing a lot of fatties, like 6 fatties. So you're basically looking to natural draw those fatties, pitch them to Psychic Frog, So you have like more entombs, like build your own entomb basically. A friend of mine was very, very interested in that kind of synergy, but I think going to 6 creatures is a lot. I would be shocked if this was the way to go moving forward, but I've been wrong many times before. I will definitely monitor it. But pretty cool innovation here. Sarah's Emissary and a show and tell even for good measure out of the sideboard to circumvent some yard hate. I love that. So now we have Forge. Glaring Fleshraker is a card that basically made that deck into an actual contender again. I love the innovation with Urza's Workshop. Like, that's a card a lot of people didn't even know existed until, you know, I don't know, 6 months back. Pretty cool. Urza's Cave, even. A little bit of Urza lands going on. So now we have more petals, but this is, you know, a black version. Dance of the Dead, works with Dragon, infinite mana. Pretty interesting. Kind of similar sideboard here, just Duress instead of Inquisition. Okay, that's interesting. So 20th place, more mid-range, pretty standard stuff, it looks like. Gonzi, more Reanimator, standard with the Wastelands, with a couple of Thoughtseizes. So this is like what I would call the stock list right now. A couple of Tamios, couple of Thoughtseize, keep the Wastelands. A couple of Voidwalkers in the sideboard. That card doesn't see all that much play anymore, but it makes sense for a premier tournament like this. We really want to respect the graveyard. And here's another Painter deck. It looks like the Painter decks are very streamlined these days. No Spirit Guys in this one, though, but pretty streamlined, I'll say. They run the same sideboard, it looks like. What about this? More mid-range. 3 Nethergoyfs, 2 Tamios. I mean, yeah, oh, Thoughtscour, okay. So Thoughtscour, even though... Okay, 4 Murktides. That explains a lot. Okay, that's interesting. So the opponent goes to Turbo Murktide out. Ah, that's cool. Kind of a modern trick. What do we have here? We have Chaveto playing the same Reanimator deck with 6 fatties. I mean, incredibly excited to see that one. Also note that 4 Thoughtseize is actually also build your own entomb. Thoughtseizing away one of those, and then you have 8 Musk counters in the deck in between Animate Dead and Reanimate afterwards. So, I don't know. Who knows? Could be wrong. So what do we have here? More or less the same theory. No. This is not blue. Okay, so this is like the classic mono black. No, it's not mono black. You're basically removing Faithless Looting for Psychic Frog. Okay, that's super cool. And a main deck Baragoy for good measure. I love that one. Next up, what do we have here? We have more Doomsday. Still 4 frogs. Only a single Tameo. It's always interesting to monitor the Doomsday decks where, you know, the one side of the axis is like Personal Tutor, Cabal Ritual. The other side of the axis is like Murktide, Psychic Frog, etc. So always good stuff. Very hard to sideboard against. What do we have here? Pretty normal Eldrazi stuff. Whenever I see 3 copies of... Oh, excuse me. Whenever I see 3 copies of It That Heralds the End, it's like, oh, the stock version. And like 3 Dismember, 3 Trap, 2 Null Rod. Kind of the same thing, right? What do we have here? We have some depth shenanigans. I like that. 3 crop rotations only. 4 Knights, 4 Reclaimers. A couple of Vexing Baubles, hedging a little bit for, you know, the good old Force of Will. And let's see, what do they have in there? So, Pajuka Bog, Dark Depths, Echoing Deeps, makes a lot of sense. A little bit of Flagstones to go with the Reclaimer. They have Karakas, Maze of Ith, Sajiri Step. Talon is a good one. A couple of stages, 1 Ga. Only 3 Wastelands. That's always so curious to see. So they're not running like all the way to, you know, Tabernacle and what's the other card I'm thinking about? Glacial Chasm, but they run all the other stuff. Oof is good because you have Zenith. Okay, Keenite Curator is like an upgraded Scavenging Ooze, I'll say. Pretty interesting card. 3 Macabres. Macabre is just so heavily played these days. Now we have a control here with main deck Ground Seal. This guy came prepared, or, you know, just was in a hiatus and just played like it was 3 months ago. But it certainly worked out. I love these kinds of control decks. A Bant deck Splash. I would imagine some Blasts. Yeah, and the one of 4 Theolingus. That works. Paradox Zone. Yeah, I remember that when the format was all about finding an edge in the Pyroblast versus Pyroblast. You would play like these 4s and 5 drops that just were obviously awesome. Cursed Totem, I would guess, is like a nod to Nadu decks. which were nowhere to be seen in this top 32, but I would imagine Curse Totem is a nod to that. So let's see, what do we have here? 30th plays rather, blue-black Reanimator, standard stuff. A little bit of more removal in the main deck. No Thought Seizes. 31st, we have Eldrazi. We know the sideboard. No, we don't. There was actually a few changes. And in the last place, another Eldrazi deck. So pretty interesting to look at, because what can we say about this winning metagame? We can say that blue-black is out in force. Mid-range is heavily played. Reanimator is heavily played. But there's different kinds of Reanimator. Some are more aggressive. Some are more like hedging. There's even a couple of Doomsday decks. Eldrazi is something we have to respect. Painter's in there with a couple of copies. But overall, this just looks super solid. You can argue there's an overrepresentation of, the card Underground Sea. I don't really mind because I enjoy that kind of magic. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out on. But I think this top 8 is actually pretty awesome. 7 different decks with a completely rogue deck taking it all down, and I don't think that's anything to scoff at. So I'm very, very excited about the first Premier tournament post the ban. I think it performed well. I think there's room for innovation. Sure, you can't leave home without proper graveyard hate, but I think that's acceptable. And at the end of the day, one deck has to be the best in the format, right? So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I don't know. You can call it an analysis. You can call it, walkthrough. But yeah, this is usually what I do. I look at the overall archetypes. I look at certain cards that stand out. I look at sideboard configurations. I look at tendencies. Just a few weeks ago, Eldrazi didn't have a, stock list, but it looks like it has now, right? So all of that stuff is important so you don't have to guess when you're at the table. It's like, oh, is this the Chalice of the Void version, or is this the other version? It's just cool to do your homework, and then you can probably do better at the tables as well. All right, that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the walkthrough. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you back on the channel next time. Bye, guys.